There's something in your house right now that holds more power than you realize. Not because of what it is, but because of what it still carries. A box. Maybe it's on a shelf, under your bed, or in the back of your closet. It doesn't matter where you put it, because energetically, it's never really left you. This box holds more than memories. It holds versions of you that never fully got to speak, to heal, to finish what they started. It's not just clutter. It's emotional evidence. Proof that your soul has been paying attention. Even when your mind tried to forget, you didn't keep it because you're nostalgic. You kept it because something inside you knew it mattered. Because a part of you is still inside that box waiting to be seen, remembered, and finally brought home. And today, we're going to open it, not to live in the past, but to take back what was always yours. Let's talk about that box for a moment, the one you keep tucked away in the back of your closet, under your bed, or maybe high up on a shelf where no one else sees it but you. You know exactly which one I mean. The box that you only open once in a while, always with a strange mix of emotions. It's not just filled with stuff, it's filled with pieces of you. And every time you look inside, something shifts. You feel it in your chest, maybe even in your stomach, a wave of something you can't quite name. It's not always sadness. Sometimes it's longing. Sometimes it's love. Sometimes it's something like grief mixed with gratitude. Inside this box are items that have outlasted chapters of your life. There's a picture of you as a child, smiling in a way you don't anymore. A kind of innocence that you've tried to recapture but haven't quite found. There's that old birthday card from someone who used to mean the world to you but who's no longer around. Maybe there's a love letter you never sent, with words your heart wanted to say but your head held back. There's a dried flower from a concert, a wristband from a trip, a trinket that once made you feel seen by someone. Each item carries an emotional fingerprint, a moment you once lived that still breathes inside that cardboard space. You might not think about it much, but that box is more than memory storage. It's a kind of emotional archive. Every item you've kept for a reason, even if you're not fully aware of it. Those aren't just scraps or leftovers from your past. They're anchors. They're reminders of when you felt most alive, most vulnerable, most yourself. It's easy to forget how powerful that is, especially when life gets busy, when routines take over, when you're trying so hard to stay focused and forward-thinking. What's wild is how your heart knows what your brain tries to forget. That's why you keep it. You don't show it off. You don't talk about it. But you also don't throw it away. Because deep down, you understand that this box is holding more than objects. It's holding context, history, versions of you that still echo quietly when the world gets too loud, versions that still matter. And sometimes, just sometimes, it's when you look at those things that you remember who you were before the noise, before the expectations, before the compromises. Think about it, you may not visit that box often, but when you do, doesn't it feel like time folds in on itself, like a door creaks open inside you that you hadn't realized was locked? That's not just nostalgia. That's your inner self reaching out for recognition. That box is proof that you were here, that you loved, that you lost, that you tried. And even now, it's still trying to speak to you. All you have to do is listen. Now, here's the part that most people don't realize. This box, this collection of memories and objects, it's not just a container of your past. It's an energetic anchor. It holds weight, not in the physical sense, but in an emotional and even spiritual way. And whether you're aware of it or not, it's influencing how you feel, how you think, and how you make decisions. Let me explain. Every time you keep something from your past, especially something tied to strong emotions, you create a thread. That thread connects your present energy to a version of yourself that existed back then, during the moment that object became significant. Maybe it was a moment of love, or heartbreak, or hope, or disappointment. And when you put all those threads in one place and leave them undisturbed for years, they don't disappear. They sit there, quietly tugging on you, like emotional cobwebs that collect energy. You know those days when everything feels off, and you can't put your finger on why, like you're stuck in a mood you didn't choose. Repeating thoughts you thought you were done with, that could be the box. Not literally, of course, but energetically. Because when you keep an altar of old energy in your home, you're keeping your past active in your field. It becomes harder to move forward when you've got unresolved fragments whispering in the background, pulling you backward, even if just a little. And this affects more than just your emotions. It impacts your choices. You might be trying to create something new in your life, a relationship, a career move, a creative project. But if your emotional field is still crowded with unprocessed memories, those efforts can get weighed down. Imagine trying to run forward while holding a heavy backpack full of things you meant to deal with but never did. That's what this is. That box is the backpack, and you're carrying it into every new chapter, even if it stays hidden. This is especially important for Virgo energy. You're someone who craves clarity, order, systems. You like to know where everything belongs. But the irony is, this box, your one sacred exception, is a place where chaos lives. Not loud chaos, but quiet, layered, unspoken chaos. It's where you've stored the endings you never fully grieved, the beginnings you abandoned before they could grow, and the dreams you decided were too impractical to follow. And all of it is still there, unresolved and waiting. That box may be small, but its influence is not. It could be coloring the way you interact with others, causing you to be more guarded than necessary, or more nostalgic than grounded. It might even be why you sometimes feel like you're living on autopilot, repeating cycles without knowing why. Because part of your energy is stuck in that box. Part of you is still looping through old scenes that your soul hasn't integrated yet. So, what can you do? The first step is to acknowledge the role this box has played in your life, not just as a storage space, but as a holding cell for your growth. There's no shame in keeping it. In fact, there's deep wisdom in the fact that you've preserved these pieces. But now it's time to engage with them consciously. Because you can't evolve freely if you're still emotionally entangled with fragments of the past that haven't been honored, healed, or released. That's not letting go. That's leveling up. Let's look at what's really inside that box, not just the physical items, but what they actually represent. Every single object in there is more than just a memory. It's a portal, a doorway into a part of you that still lives, even if it's been quiet for a long time. And that's where the power is. You see, each piece is carrying a vibration, an energy signature from a specific version of yourself. And when you touch that object, when you even think about it, you activate that version again. Take an old photo, for example. Maybe it's you as a teenager or a kid, smiling like you hadn't yet learned to doubt yourself. That image isn't just a snapshot. It's a mirror. It shows you a moment when you were more open, more fearless, maybe even more hopeful. And in that moment, you get to ask, what did I lose? What did I trade away to fit into the world I thought I had to belong to? That's not just reflection. That's a potential invitation to bring some of that light back into the present. Or maybe it's a letter you never sent. One you wrote late at night when you were finally honest, raw, and unfiltered. You didn't send it, but you couldn't throw it away either. Because deep down, you knew it was real. That letter holds a voice that still belongs to you, a voice that might be braver than the one you use today. And if you let it, it could remind you of your ability to speak from the heart again. Even a small object, like a bracelet from a trip or a note from a loved one, carries emotional weight. These aren't just souvenirs. They're emotional timestamps. They tell you where you were, what you felt, what you hoped for. And sometimes, they reveal what you still want, what you haven't stopped longing for, even if life got in the way. The key here is to stop treating these items as frozen artifacts and start seeing them as alive. They're not dead weight, they're potential. If you approach them with curiosity instead of avoidance, they can spark something powerful inside you. A memory that turns into motivation, a dream that turns into direction, a moment of pain that becomes a message of healing. One woman told me she kept a dried flower from her wedding bouquet, not because the marriage lasted, but because that flower held the last time she truly believed in love. And when she held it years later, she cried not from grief, but because she realized she still had that love in her, waiting to be expressed in a new way. So go ahead, open the box, look closely, not with sadness, but with a kind of sacred respect. Because what you're really looking at isn't just your past, it's your hidden power. And maybe, just maybe, the parts of you you've been looking for have been quietly waiting inside all along. Now let's talk about something I call emotional archaeology. It's the process of digging through your own emotional history, not just to remember, but to rediscover, to uncover the buried pieces of yourself that still have value, still hold power, but have been pushed aside or forgotten over time. Think of it like this. Every object in that box is a fragment of your inner landscape, like fossils waiting to be examined, understood, and integrated. But here's the thing. You can't just open the box and expect magic to happen. You have to approach it with a different kind of mindset, not as someone visiting a graveyard of the past, but as an explorer stepping into sacred ground. You need curiosity, patience, and most of all, presence. This is not about reliving pain for the sake of pain. It's about noticing what your emotions have been trying to teach you all along. For example, say you find an old journal. Don't just flip through the pages out of habit. Sit with it. Read your words slowly. Feel what your younger self was trying to express. Look for themes, for patterns, for unfinished dreams. You might be surprised at what still resonates. You might even find answers to questions you're facing right now, answers your present mind never thought to look for in the past. This isn't about dwelling. It's about decoding. When you read a letter you wrote but never sent, ask yourself, what truth was I trying to speak that I still haven't voiced? When you hold on to a token from a trip or a moment, ask, what did that place awaken in me that I've allowed to go dormant? These questions aren't just sentimental, they're strategic. They help you reconnect with the energy you need to move forward. You see, emotional archaeology isn't about turning back. It's about going deeper, about using the tools of your own story to understand what still matters and what needs to be released. When done with care, this process can rewire your relationship with your past. Instead of seeing it as something you escaped, you begin to see it as a source of wisdom that's been waiting for your return. One man told me he kept a cassette tape from his father, a recording of advice he never appreciated until years later. When he finally listened again, he realized he had been living out a fear that wasn't his, but his father's. That moment changed everything, because awareness, once felt deeply, transforms you. That's the power of emotional archaeology. It brings your attention to what was unconscious. It turns background noise into insight. So, when you revisit the contents of your box, don't rush, don't judge, just listen. Let those objects speak. Let them reveal not just where you've been, but who you've always been beneath the layers. There's gold in your history, but you have to dig with intention and with love. Now let's get honest for a second. Some of what's in that box isn't just sentimental. It's not just a reminder of who you were, it's a reminder of the parts of yourself you abandoned, the dreams you gave up on because someone said they were unrealistic, the talents you hid because they didn't fit the mold, the feelings you pushed down because the world didn't know what to do with them. That box, it's holding more than memory. It's holding parts of your soul that were never given permission to stay. We all do this, especially people who are sensitive, intuitive, and highly self-aware like most Virgos. You're smart. You know how to adapt. You know how to read a room, figure out what's expected, and deliver. But in doing that over and over again, you may have slowly edited yourself, and those edits, while useful for survival, come at a cost. Because every time you say no to a part of yourself in order to be accepted, you create a little fracture, a little silence where there used to be a voice. Let me ask you something. Do you remember what you used to love before you were told what you should like, before the world convinced you to be more practical, more polished, more predictable? Maybe you used to write stories or dream about being a singer or a healer or a painter. Maybe you were wildly curious, playful, and free. And little by little, those colors faded because someone somewhere made you feel like they didn't matter. But they did. And they still do. That's why that box matters. Because inside it are not just memories, but evidence. Evidence that you once gave yourself permission to dream without limits. That you once felt deeply, expressed freely, and hoped boldly. And you kept those things not just because they were sweet, but because they were true. They were you, the real you. The version that existed before the expectations kicked in. One man told me he kept a small sketchbook hidden for years. He used to draw as a kid monsters, superheroes, fantasy worlds. But he stopped because his dad told him there was no future in art. Years later, he found the sketchbook again, and for the first time in decades, he picked up a pencil. Not to prove anything, just to feel that spark again. And that spark became a new business, a new community, and a part of himself he never thought he'd reclaim. So let me tell you this. Whatever is hiding in your box, whatever dream, emotion, version of yourself you've tucked away for safekeeping, it's not too late. You're not too old. You're not too far gone. That part of you didn't disappear. It's been waiting. And now it's your job to decide, are you going to keep burying that part of you? Or are you ready to let it breathe again? Now that you've seen what's in the box, what it holds, what it remembers, and what it's still trying to teach you, it's time to shift the way you relate to it. This is not just a storage space. This is a living archive, a personal library of your soul. And you, whether you knew it or not, have been the quiet guardian of it all along. You didn't throw those things away because, deep down, a part of you knew that one day you'd come back for them, that you'd need them again, not as relics, but as resources. As this is where integration begins, not by forcing yourself to be someone you used to be, but by weaving those past threads into the fabric of who you're becoming. That's the shift. When you stop seeing your past as something to escape and start seeing it as something to partner with. Because your growth isn't about leaving pieces behind. It's about learning how to bring them with you in a way that honors your evolution. Let's say you used to be wildly creative, but now live a more structured life. You don't have to give up structure to reclaim creativity. You just need to make room for it. Maybe that looks like painting for 10 minutes a day, or journaling once a week, or singing in the car with the windows rolled down. Whatever it is, it doesn't have to be grand. It just has to be intentional. Because the parts of you you've left behind aren't asking to take over. They're asking to be included. You might be surprised at how much lighter life feels when you do this. When you stop pretending that the box is just old stuff and start recognizing it as a treasure chest of emotional intelligence. Every item in there can be a key, a clue, a reminder of what really matters to you. And when you use those items with intention, when you let them guide you instead of haunt you, you begin to move through the world differently, with more clarity, with more self-trust, with more wholeness. One woman I spoke with found an old cassette tape of her voice as a child, reading a story she wrote. She hadn't heard it in decades. When she played it, she cried not because it was sad, but because it reminded her of a time when she believed her voice mattered. That moment inspired her to start a podcast in her 50s, not because she needed to be heard by millions, but because she finally wanted to hear herself again. So go ahead. Look at your box one more time. But this time, don't just see memories. See maps. See messages. See the missing pieces of your own power ready to be reclaimed, reintegrated, and reborn into the version of you that's been waiting to fully arrive. Here's the moment where it all starts to come together. The silence you've been carrying, the weight you didn't even know was on your chest, it's all connected to that box. And I don't just mean emotionally. I mean energetically, spiritually, and physically. Because the truth is, Virgo, you've been holding your breath, not just for a few minutes, for years, maybe even decades. You've been waiting for the right moment to exhale, and maybe you didn't even know it. See, you didn't keep that box because you're sentimental. You kept it because your soul knew it wasn't done yet, that something inside those objects still needed to be seen, heard, and felt. You didn't save them because you're stuck. You saved them because, deep down, you understood that healing doesn't always happen in a straight line. Sometimes it waits. It waits until you're strong enough, until you're ready, until the noise of the world fades just enough for your own voice to break through again. That voice, it's been whispering. Beneath all the responsibilities, the to-do lists, the quiet pressure to have it all together, it's still there. And the reason this box matters so much now is because your soul is asking for reunion, not with another person, with yourself, with the version of you who dared to dream big, to feel deeply, to love fully, even when the world told you to stay small. Maybe no one told you this before, but healing is not always about letting go. Sometimes healing is about picking things back up, pieces of yourself that you set down because life demanded it. And now that voice, the one that used to be loud and full of color, it's rising again, not in anger, in invitation. You don't need to go back in time. You just need to remember who you were before the world made you forget. This is what silence does. It holds space. It keeps things sacred. And when it breaks, when you finally let yourself feel what's been locked away, it doesn't explode. It unfolds. Like a letter that was always waiting to be opened. Like a light turning on in a room you forgot you even had inside you. Let me paint a picture. A woman told me once that she had a tiny silver locket she kept from her grandmother. Inside was a photo and a note, something her grandmother wrote before passing. For years, she couldn't open it, not because she didn't care, but because it hurt too much. One day, she did, and she cried for hours. But those tears didn't break her. They released her. They cleaned out a part of her that had been holding sorrow and silence. That's what this moment is, a sacred breaking, not destruction, liberation. You've spent so long being strong, being the one who manages everything, who stays calm, keeps going, holds it all together. But even the strongest need softness. Even the most organized soul needs a space where they can fall apart a little. And if that space is a box tucked in your closet, then so be it. Because that space is holy, It's real. It's honest. And when you give yourself permission to sit with it, to be with all the versions of you inside, it changes everything. You stop apologizing for your depth. You stop shrinking to fit someone else's comfort. You stop running from the feelings you once labeled as weakness. And instead, you begin to integrate, to rise, to feel whole again. Because here's the truth, that box doesn't hold you back. It holds you. It keeps safe the memories that mattered, the lessons that shaped you, the echoes of your younger self that still deserve a seat at your table. And now, as you open it with intention, with grace, with full presence, you get to choose what comes with you into the next chapter. Not everything needs to. Some things will stay behind. Some things will be honored and gently released. But others, they'll come alive again. That letter you never sent might inspire one you finally will. That picture might remind you of a smile you haven't worn in years. That keepsake might reignite a part of you that thought it was forgotten. So here's the invitation, open it. Not to get lost in the past, but to make peace with it, to let your silence speak, to let your stillness move, to let your truth rise like breath returning after a long pause. And as it rises, let it carry you not backward, but forward into a life where all of you is welcome. Because the silence was never empty. It was waiting. By now, you've done something most people never even consider. You've looked inside not just the box, but yourself. And what you found there wasn't just nostalgia. It was truth. It was clarity. And it was a reminder that your story hasn't been paused. It's been patiently waiting for you to pick up the pen again. This isn't about going back. It's about going deeper. You're not trying to become who you used to be. You're learning how to honor who you were, so you can step more fully into who you're becoming. And that shift, that's everything. It turns regret into reverence. It turns sadness into insight. It turns silence into song. You don't have to carry everything forward. Some of those memories will stay where they are respected, appreciated, but no longer active. Others, though, will move with you, and they'll become the foundation for new choices, new relationships, new expressions of the self you've been rediscovering. There's something powerful about knowing that you are the bridge between your past and your future, that you get to choose what comes with you and what gets gently left behind. And maybe for the first time in a long time, you feel whole, not perfect, not fixed, but present, connected, and clear, because you've stopped running from your past and started learning from it. You've stopped hiding parts of yourself and started welcoming them home. One man told me he kept a broken wristwatch from college. It hadn't worked in over 20 years, but when he looked at it, he remembered who he was at that time: hopeful, reckless, creative. Eventually, he decided to get the watch repaired, not because he needed to wear it, but because it reminded him that some things are worth restoring. That watch became a symbol, not of time lost, but of time reclaimed. What comes next isn't about proving anything. It's about living fully, about showing up in your life as someone who's not afraid to feel, to remember, to start again. That box might stay in your closet, but it won't stay untouched, because now you understand what it really holds. And now you're ready to carry it, not as a burden, but as part of the story you're still writing. If this message touched something inside you, if it stirred a memory, opened a door, or reminded you of a part of yourself you haven't visited in a long time, then that's not an accident. That's alignment. That's timing. That's the signal you've been waiting for. And now it's your move. I want to invite you into the next step of this journey, because this isn't the end. It's the beginning of a deeper process, one where you start to work with the energy of your own story in a conscious and powerful way. In the next video, I'm going to guide you through a process I call object activation. How to take one item from your box and use it to reignite something you thought you lost. Maybe it's confidence. Maybe it's creativity. Maybe it's the ability to trust again. But before we get there, I want to hear from you in the comments. Write one word or one phrase that represents what your box means to you. Maybe it's hope, or unfinished, or forgotten treasure. Just one word is enough to start the process. When you name it, you claim it. When you claim it, you begin to shift. And if you want to take it further, if you're ready to explore emotional archaeology with real tools, real guidance, and real connection, make sure you subscribe. Turn on the notifications so you don't miss what's coming next. Because we're building something here. A space where healing isn't a performance, it's a practice. And if this video resonated with you, share it. You never know who else is keeping a box just like yours, quietly waiting for someone to tell them it's okay to open it. You could be that spark. You could be the reminder they've been needing. Let me ask you this. When was the last time you felt truly seen, not for what you do or what you give, but for who you are? Deep down, underneath it all. That's what we're doing here. Seeing each other, naming what's been unnamed, healing what's been held in silence. You're not alone in this. Your box is not just yours. It's a part of a larger human story. And when we start telling those stories together, we all begin to heal one memory, one message, one object at a time. So go ahead, comment below, subscribe, share, and keep showing up, because your story deserves to be seen, and you deserve to feel whole again.